Career Safari Torch Community. It's Mindful Monday time with Coach Linda. Coach Linda, last week you had us do an exercise to bring more awareness to our senses. And some of the feedback that I got was, okay, I'm now noticing that I have been reacting to my emotions more than I have been responding. So it'd be good to know what's the difference there and how can we not react. And also I heard that there's an increased awareness of our senses and increased awareness of our thoughts. So people are just wondering, and myself, now that I know what I'm feeling, what do I do with all of this?
Okay. Hi, Wamita. Lovely to be back with you all again. And what a great question. The realization that people are saying, I'm becoming so much more aware that I've got these emotions, and now that I'm unpacking them, I'm actually reacting rather than responding. That's profound. That's real self-awareness, that they're becoming more aware that they're reacting. Because what we tend to do is the brain is actually divided into three, and this is a very basic lesson in anatomy, and I'm not a neuroscientist, but I do the neurocoaching. And we start with the reptilian brain at the base of the brain, which is really our physiological response. We're able to breathe. If there's danger, we're able to run, etc. Our emotional center is in the middle of our brain. It's called the limbic system. And if we just sit there with our emotions, and so now we've done the exercise, okay, this is how I'm feeling. Let me characterize it. Let me give it, what does it look like, smell like, taste like, etc. Well, what do we do with it now? Because if we leave it in the center of the brain, the limbic system, and we react to the emotion, it purely is that. It's a reaction to the emotion without actually taking it to the brain, because we want to bring thought into the process now. So if I'm feeling emotional about a stimulus or a trigger, I don't want to be reactive. I want to be able to respond. And the only way I can respond is to press the pause button and take that emotion that I now understand through my 5 senses, and I've given it character, take it to my cognitive center, where the prefrontal cortex, where we can make sense of it, where we're rational and logic, and we can unpack the meaning of it. And only when we take that gap are we then able to have the power of choice. And this comes from Viktor Frankl's work. And he was incarcerated during the Second World War in one of the concentration camps. And he later, being a psychiatrist, he wrote Man's Search for Meaning, because he realized that where we are, despite what circumstances we're in, we actually still do have a choice on how we want to respond to those circumstances. So we can respond to our emotions, but let's do it intelligently by taking it to our brains to make sense of a sense of meaning of what the emotional is, and then we can choose to respond. Because when we respond more appropriately than when we just react. And in that gap, and it gets smaller and smaller. Eventually, we start to do it unconsciously. The more we practice it, lies our power to choose, because we have the power of choice. And in that power of choice lies our ability to grow and find joy, which is what we should be striving for.
So now that you've given us some exercises to heighten our awareness of how we're feeling, and then last week you did give us that 5 senses exercise, and that's a good way to pause and allow us to now think about why we're feeling how we're feeling and create meaning around it, to have better responses to how we want to deliver on that emotion.
Absolutely. So the task for this week is, now that you've got increased self-awareness, you know how to actually still your mind through the breathing, you can identify your emotions, you characterize them. Now the task is to, every time you become aware that you want to have a reactive response, you're going to press the big red pause button and say, I'm not reacting. I'm first going to take it up to my brain, which is why it's there. It's the functionality is, I'm going to make sense of this. Why am I feeling the way I'm feeling? And once we've made sense of it, I'm actually then going to respond. And sometimes we don't even need to respond. You need to decide where you want to put your energy. Is it worth a response? And if I do respond, I want to respond well, in a way that's going to serve both me and the other person, or whatever the stimulus has been that has caused the emotional state in the first place.
So thank you. So Torch community, you have our task. Now we're going to put the big red pause button on when we feel we're about to have a reaction and bring that emotion to our brain and make meaning around why do I want to react that way? What's the best way for me to respond that will serve me and serve that person? Coach Linda, I have to be honest with you, that's going to be so kind of hard.
Okay, well, you know, it's only worth doing if it's hard. And it is definitely worth doing because it seems hard now, but remember, what we practice grows stronger. So the more we do this, the easier it becomes. And soon you'll be doing this without even stopping to think about doing it. You will automatically take the emotions to the brain to make sense of them before you have an emotional reaction, because you really want to have a beautiful, emotional, meaningful, sense-making response.
Well, thank you. You guys were in this together. And so we look forward to having more time with you next week, Coach Linda. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye, everybody.